Hey there, crew. Today we're going to learn more about the artist Piet Mondrian. Mondrian is from the country of the Netherlands, which means he is Dutch. And actually, my family comes from the same country too. We are going to also talk about three elements of art that Mondrian was an expert at, and you'll be an expert on too. Those are line, shape, and color. So for line, the three kinds of lines that Mondrian loves, and we're going to use as well, are vertical, horizontal, and diagonal. So a vertical line is straight up and down, like that. So that's vertical. A horizontal line is flat side to side, horizontal. And then diagonal is kind of going at an angle. So a diagonal line could go this away or that away. So vertical, tall, horizontal, flat, diagonal, off to the side, like an angle. All right? Shape, well, Mondrian likes geometric shapes. And the three types of shapes that we can make today are squares. So they're the same on every side. How many sides does a square have? Uno, dos, tres, cuatro. 4 sides. Now, a rectangle is kind of like a square because it has 4 sides, but they're not all the same length. So if I measured a rectangle, they wouldn't all be the same length around the outside edges like a square would be. And rectangles can be all sorts of different sizes. And then the other kind of shape that Mondrian likes is a triangle. So a triangle has 3 sides instead of 4. Uno, dos, tres. And triangles can look different too. Oh man, I can use a vertical, horizontal, and diagonal line to make a triangle. Pretty cool. And then the colors that Mondrian loves are black and white. So I'll get black, white, and then the 3 primary colors are the 3 main colors in all of art. So the 3 main colors, and Mondrian's favorite colors, are rojo red, azul blue, and amarillo yellow. So the main colors in art, red, blue, yellow, and then some contrasting black and white. So Mondrian is all about line, shape, and color. Now let's use a tool and our skills to do the exact same thing. So I'm going to flip this paper over. Actually, my paper is a rectangle too. So a tool we can use to make lines, vertical, horizontal, or diagonal, is a ruler. So a ruler can measure things and it can make straight lines. So I'm going to use my pencil first. Keep it light till you get it right. Use my ruler as a tool to make my different lines. And now you're an artist, so you can just experiment and do as many lines or as few lines as your heart desires. You're the artist, you're the boss, you do you. So I'm going to just start with some random vertical lines that go up and down. And you want to take your time and hold your ruler down flat so that you can get a nice straight line. And if you are really into measuring, you might even want to measure and make tick marks on each side. So if I was around 5 inches there, I'd be around 5 inches here, and make sure that that is a perfectly straight line. And you can make horizontal lines as well. So remember, those are flat across the page. Maybe I'll make one here too. So no real rhyme or reason. Your composition, or the way your paper will look, is going to be different than Mondrian's, and different from Mr. Gove's, and different from your neighbor or anybody else, because you're unique and so's your artwork. So I've made some vertical, I've made some horizontal. Now let's get one of those angles in. So when I'm doing an angle, I'm going to go to the corners, or opposite corners, of a rectangle or square, and I'm going to line up those corners I'm extra careful. Keep it light till you get it right with your pencil. And boom, I just made 2 triangles, and you can always check by counting the sides. 1, 2, 3. Yep, that's a triangle. So once you've messed around and gotten some triangles, squares, rectangles, vertical, horizontal, and diagonal lines in your composition, your artwork, and you say, voila, that is enough. You can then grab some paint, or if you don't have paint, you can even use a marker. So you could go over your black or your lines with black. You could trace them with a marker, like this handy dandy Sharpie, or you could use paint. I'm going to use some paint. So on my palette, I have Mondrian's favorite colors. I have black, I have blue, I have red, I have yellow. I don't have white because guess what? Our paper's white. So that's how I'm going to use white in my artwork. So I'm going to start with black. And I'm going to use a skinny brush because lines are skinny too. So if I'm going to trace those lines, I don't want a big, huge brush. I want a teeny tiny brush that's used for details and skinny lines like Mondrian would use. So I'm going to just use my black. And paint brushes are very particular about their hairdos. And we don't like to give bad hairdos or make our paintbrushes grumpy. So I'm going to do a nice smooth stroke, no bad hair days. And if it gets scratchy like that, you can just refill with a little more paint. Now I'm right-handed, and since I'm right-handed, I'm going to start like I'm reading a book and go left to right. That way, my hand isn't dragging in wet paint. If you are a lefty, you might want to start on the right side and move toward your left. That way your hand isn't dragging through black paint and ruining your wonderful vertical, horizontal, and diagonal lines. So slow and steady, nice and carefully, trace over your lines with a marker, or you could even use a crayon, colored pencil, paint, whatever you want. But we're going to just make those lines nice and bold and dark with the black. Once you've traced over all your lines, you'll want to let them dry before you get into your other Mondrian primary colors, rojo red, azul blue, and amarillo yellow. So I'm going to let this dry and get back to it later. Luckily, I already practiced like Mondrian, and I have one ready to go. So let your black lines dry before you move into your other colors. And again, you're going to want to use one color at a time because you don't want to make a muddy mess. So I have 3 brushes, or if you just have one, you can always clean it, give it a nice new hairdo, and then move into your next color. So let's say I start with amarillo yellow. Again, just like my black lines, I'm going to move from left to right so I'm not dragging in wet paint. Because I'm filling the bigger shapes now instead of the lines, so now I'm filling my triangles, my rectangles, my squares, I can use a little bit bigger of a brush. Also notice I filled some of my shapes with the black paint, and I'm going to leave some of my shapes blank and white to be a little bit more like Mondrian and give more variety and contrast. But I also want to do balance. So balance would be not all my leftover squares, rectangles, and triangles are going to be yellow. I want to leave some so that they can be red and blue too. So I don't want all the yellows together. I want to spread them out so you could see yellow all throughout the page. And again, nice smooth strokes, no bad hair days. If you get a little bit of your yellow on the black, guess what? You can let it dry and paint over it later. We're just trying to be careful and fill the shapes almost like this is a Mondrian coloring book that we made. And we're trying to get it in the lines. But guess what? Nobody's perfect, even Mondrian. So you sometimes just need to touch up your mistakes. And sometimes if if you missed a spot, you'll just have to go over and paint it again once it's dry. So balance, I would maybe get some more yellow here, and maybe just for now I'm going to put a yellow stripe there so I know that one's going to be yellow. Maybe this weird shape's going to be yellow. And then I could move on to my next color and plan ahead for red. And maybe I want this rectangle red right here. I want this top one red, and you could fill that one in. Ooh, I kind of like this big one here to be red. And maybe right here, this guy, and I'll fill that in quick. Ooh, I got some in my black, so I'll just let it dry and touch it up later. And then last but not least, I will use some azul blue. Maybe I want this tall, skinny, vertical rectangle to be blue. Maybe I'll leave this one white because I don't want two blue ones right next to each other. This triangle would be good as a blue triangle. I like this other tall, well actually this is a horizontal rectangle, it's flat. So I want that one to be blue, and maybe this guy down here, and this guy right here. And then the rest I could leave white and go and fill in my yellow and red and blue that I didn't quite fill in before. This was just my plan. So then when you have one all finished and dry, and maybe you touched up your other squares and rectangles and triangles with the black, you'll have a finished Mondrian artwork like this, full of line, shape, and color. So you can be a master champion artist just like Mondrian, and it will be unique to you as the artist. Even though we're all using the same kind of line, shape, and color, we can still make unique and abstract artwork. I can't wait to see what you guys come up with. Good luck.